Like many of you, I have also kind of esteemed traveling. I've enjoyed sort of the grandeur, the experience of exploring new landscapes and new things. And amongst those new adventures, obviously meeting women. And in this case, at least in my younger years, I was very much fascinated with the concept of getting a mulatta or various mulattas. All right. And so what did that naturally do? It took me to the Dominican Republic. And I went twice actually. The first time was to that very popular beach destination. What is it called? I'm drawing a blank here, but you know where it is. It's like the Cancun of the Dominican Republic and Punta Cana. And that's resorts. It's kind of it's a lot more tighter the experience, right? It's not as open as you would think. It's very much like plug and chug, very predictable. Those kind of places you can kind of go anywhere in the Caribbean and get similar experiences and not know even where you are. But the second time, I was rather audacious. I went on my own, obviously, right? And I said I'm going to go to Samana, which is a peninsula. Um, and I landed in Puerto Plata first, which I thought I had done enough research, but I really hadn't. Because when I got there and I saw what it was, I was like, oh my God, like, I can't stay in this place. First off, just to kind of give you a backdrop of what that place is like, it's essentially like a red light district. Um, and it's just one of the nastiest kind of places I've ever been to. I felt just gross just walking around. Because the type of guys that are there, usually Americans, Black Americans in particular, they were there just to pay for play essentially, right? And so it was just it's just like super degen, and everything about it was very much like red light districty, but like a third world version. So not sexy at all, not very appealing. I was like, I got to get out of here. So I stayed there for one night, and then I got out of there. And then, like I said, I drove to Samana. The first thing that should have already, you know how it is, like when you go to these places, unfortunately, when they see that you're an American, they think you got a lot of money. And so people don't want to be honest and upfront with you about how to get certain places. So I was just trying to catch what they call a wawa, which is just like a colectivo, a bus or a van to get me to Samana because it was quite far. It was a few hours away. And then, they were just like, no, you got to take a taxi, like whatever. So I ended up hopping in a cab, got there after several hours of driving, and I ended up here, right? And in the beginning, everything was cool. Like the beaches were nice. It's a small little town, I don't even want to mention the name of the town, but because do your own thing. If you really insist on going, then be my guest. But I'm gonna tell you about my experience there and why I never want to go back to the DR. That's the reality. And so I got there and I wanted to go on a hike to like this beach that I could easily just went on a boat and landed at that beach. It was like one of those beaches that was like you couldn't get there through any roads, so you had to get on a boat. But I was like, no, there's no fun in that. Let me go on a hike. So I found some guy that would like basically take me on the hike, like a guide. And I went with that guy. And they have this thing in the Dominican Republic, they call them tigres, which are basically just like these dudes that pounce and pillage anybody and anything that they can get their hands on, right? In this case, right, they're, I guess akin to like a scammer, if you will. But, they poach and they try to prod and poke and they try to get any penny out of you. So whatever, I went on a hike with this guy and he was chill in the beginning, I was like, whatever, like I needed somebody to go with me because I didn't want to get lost and I didn't know the terrain. So anyhow, so I went on the hike with the guy and then I kind of like used him as a guide, like for the rest of the days that I was there. On the last day that we were there, he kind of convinced me to rent a car, and I was like, all right, cool. That way we can see like the rest of the peninsula. I was like, fine, one night won't be anything. First thing we do, we go to the store. I mean, this guy, as soon as I gave him a vehicle, I mean, everything about him changed. We get in the car, we stop at a store, and he wants to go get liquor, and he gets a bottle of whiskey, and he's like down in the whiskey. I mean, and these roads are very windy. Kind of reminds me of like Southeast Asia, very windy, very hilly, very rocky. Beautiful, by the way, very beautiful. And so we're like going through these windy streets, and this guy's speeding, and he's down in the whiskey while he's driving. And that's when things got real shady. So he like, when you're going through these roads, there's like little towns, interspersed throughout these roads. And we go to this one town, and he like finds this girl, this like older woman, and then like her friend. And I didn't realize like what was happening, but then he picks them up, and then I guess like the older one was for him, he was a little bit older than me. The older one was for him, and then I guess like apparently the young one was for me, dude. I mean, I was just like, whoa, man, what is this third world nonsense? Like the girl that he was trying to give me was like prepubescent. I was like, bro, are you being serious right now? Like, what is this? So they were trying to get her to me to mess around with her. I'm like, dude, you're a little girl. I told her, like, I speak Spanish. So I told her, I was like, you're a little girl. Like, what do you think this is? It was really disturbing, you know? So I started getting kind of paranoid because I'm like, what is this? You know, like, what is all this? And so eventually we bought her a yogurt and dropped her off. And I was like, look, bro, you can have the car. Like, take that, take that shit for the rest of the night. If you want to be with this girl, you know, go ahead, be my guest. I don't care. As long as you pick me up and take me to my stop, which was like a couple hours away, I'm ready to go. And then I got to my Airbnb that night, and I don't know, there was something weird, man. I was just like really feeling really off about the whole thing. I guess I just was like really paranoid, and I felt like I had kind of seen like the devil, is what it felt like. So I was in my little room, and it was a little shack, and I remember like I had the door open because it didn't have air conditioning, and I had like a sliding door, like a netted door, so you can kind of see the outside in it. And I was kind of like in like a weird like hallucinatory sort of like phase, if you will, of sleep. And I felt like there was a dog that was gonna ram right into the door. And then as it was approaching the door, it kind of like segued to the side. And I was like, man, like if I could get out of here right now, I would, you know. And then I just finally left, you know. And then it was like not before this guy was always like any experience that we were doing, we did like a horseback ride. We did like different little experiences. He was like charging me $60 each time. And then the last time we were there, he was still trying to get like another like $60 out of me. I'm like, bro, like enough. Like, and then it was just like, dude, like it was just like one thing after another. And it was like, look, I was very green at the time. I was very nice. I didn't realize like that, you know, when you're in these places, you have to be really thick skinned and you can't just get played by anybody. And in this case, I was just too nice for that. And it's just too nice. And then one other experience that I had, and this is like another thing for like anybody that's trying to like, you know, travel and be a good person and give to people. I remember I went to the barbershop in Samana, and I got a haircut, and like I gave the guy like 3 or 4 times the amount that I should have gave him. And and then I, you know, it's a small town, so I'm like heading back to my Airbnb at night, and I see this guy in a stupor, like drunk out of his mind. He's like, "Oh, I'll take you to your spot," and he's like trying to ask me for more money, and then he shows me like, I was like, "Well, where's the rest of the money I gave you?" And then he points at the trash can. It's like 3 bottles of, I don't know, some cheap rum. And I was like, dude, are you being serious? I was like, I gave you that money thinking you would buy your kid something or food for the family or something like that. And then you realize like, okay, this is what happens when you think you're doing someone a favor, you think you're doing something good for someone. They don't want it for themselves. I mean, some people are just willing to sabotage themselves and not really, you know, take advantage of the opportunity. So it's like that wasn't in my control, but I definitely wasn't going to give him any more money. I was like, buddy, like that's it. I gave you like way too much money for a sloppy ass haircut to begin with. Like that's my fault for even giving you that much money because you didn't deserve it. You were being sloppy, and at that point, by the time I got to my last stop, which was like I landed back in Puerto Plata because I wanted to be there one day before my flight, and I was like, I want to get the hell out of here. I never want to come to the Dominican Republic ever again. And frankly, I still stand on that. I don't ever want to go back there again. Yes, there's some pretty women if you're into like mulattas, but frankly, I just don't want to deal with the tigres. Like those guys are monsters, and they're out there just trying to see who they can pillage. So it's just something to be aware of. So if you're even considering going, just keep in mind it's not what you think it is. And if you're not a seasoned traveler, you have to be very mindful that these guys are going to come after you, and they're really going to try to, dig into your pockets as best they can. Could this happen anywhere? Perhaps, but I'm saying my experience in the Dominican Republic is I never want to go back there again. And frankly, that phase of mine of being into mulattas, like it in theory, it sounds like a great idea. It's romantic, they're sexy and whatnot. But as soon as you get to know them, I'm kind of like, all right, I had enough of this. I'm kind of over it. I don't want any more parts of this. I'm just not built like that. So I was like, never again. But anyhow, like I said, I will never go to the Dominican Republic again. I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next one.